Welcome to the Sleeping Grush Inn. I'll fetch a healer to see to that wound, traveler. You relax here by the fire and enjoy a mug of ale. Tell us all about your adventures in Phelan. I'm Lore Master Matt.
And I'm Phelan Jon.
And welcome to the Sleeping Grush podcast. This is episode 33. Holy cow, I missed one, so I'm all discombobulated and very saddened. But you guys carried on very well in my absence there. So that was I hear that's a great episode. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But
it's okay. I mean, how good can it be without you?
Well, I have my guesses. Today's episode is brought to you by Cardboard Corner Cafe, the best gaming cafe in Kansas City, now in 2 locations, the Lenexa Public Market and Overland Park. If you find yourself in Kansas City, want to play some games, want some great fellowships, some great drinks, some great food, Cardboard Corner is the place to go.
We start this episode of the Sleeping Grush podcast with our On the Table segment, where I ask Lore Master Matt what he is currently painting that has to do with Phelan.
Actually, the only things on my table right now are Phelan.
You wait, hold on. We're gonna step one side step here, one Black Rose side step. You're saying that your paint table at home, the only models on it are those 2. That's crazy.
Only 2.
That's
now,
crazy.
I had to put a whole bunch of stuff in plastic tubs and put it up on a shelf because while I was gone, I knew that my cats would have a heyday on that table, so I had to clear it.
What you're saying is if I had a cat, the 56 million models that are on my paint tables would get
on
moved.
the floor.
Yeah, right. Stop on the floor. Okay, that's motivation, however it comes. All right, so what are we talking about here?
So I have, right now on my table, I have a Golad Druid and a Trillian Dracahol. And they're both being painted simultaneously. They're buddies for a story that I have in my head that often I use what I'm painting as a motivation for my stories and as a muse. And so we've got this Golad Druid and the Dracahol.
And they are gorgeous.
Thank you for saying so.
Yeah, because I really like the palette. Tell us about the palette.
So the Golad Druid, it's very earth-based. It is a very muddy, brown, worn cape over a dark green worn tunic and the front piece. Gosh, I can't think of what it's called right now. It's black to match the Trillian Dracahol's gown, and then there's a dark orange, a burnt orange piping, and his mantlet has a dark orange on it. So the staff he's carrying is made to resemble olive wood. If you've ever seen olive wood work before, it has kind of a greenish tint to it. So I did some real nice caramel brown tones and then slapped a couple of olive green glazes onto it.
And you can see a picture of these guys in the painting showcase channel, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I posted the Dracahol there yet, but I know I have the Golden Druid.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm seeing it in different places, so I'm trying to remember if I was there.
You know what? After we record this, I'll make sure to fix that.
You need to fix it.
Yeah. So that is what's on my table right now.
Can you play a Dracahol and a Golad Druid at the same time? Tell us about that.
I believe that you can with the Golad unsanctioned list.
There you go.
You can have Trillian allies.
Yep.
So you could do it there. Mine are for a completely different purpose. Like I said, it's more of a narrative thing. And tackling the supernatural part of Phelan, the demon hunting part of Phelan. So,
yeah. But the unsanctioned product is a free download in the download section of the website.
Yeah,
these are free bands, not yet approved for competitive. The only thing they're not approved for is competitive play because we haven't balanced them.
Can't drop them on the tourney circuit.
Right, but you can play them in encounters. You can do anything you want with them except that.
Yeah,
right. And really, a sanctioned event by us. If you want to take them and play them in your own tournament at home, that's also
absolutely.
Because the Golats and the Trillians share a history, a narrative in their history.
Yeah.
You could actually play those two models together, I think. I might make sure that Drakal got updated in there, but that'll be a note for us to take.
Should if it hasn't yet.
If it hasn't yet, it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you guys will really, really like that story when it drops.
Oh,
It's
I
rather
love your
around on the
stories.
top of my
Yeah.
head. So
You're the lore master.
yeah, so that's what's on the table.
Sweet.
So
They are beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
I really appreciate you saying so. Our second segment today is Spike and Win, where we talk about a game that we've played recently or seen recently. And John, I think you're going to cover that.
Well, typically we want to do one that we've played.
Sure.
I would like to do more of that. I'm working. I have tonight, we're down here at Cardboard Corner Cafe and Tabletop Gaming Hobby. I have both my new 275 Black Rose list to help people prep for future tournaments, because we'll be talking about that later in the episode.
We will.
And for the Inner Sea campaign.
Right.
I'll be able to play either or both. It'd be great if I got both in. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But the game I want to talk about is the final game of the Free Blades North American Championship Tournament at Adepticon, which we're talking about Adepticon tonight.
But I'm anxious to hear about this.
Yes.
Because I wasn't there.
Yeah. So we have a couple of multi-coin holders facing off in the finals. Irvin Armitage representing the great country of Canada, and Andrew Potter representing the United States. It's something we need to work on. We have less Canadian players joining us at this event than we have in the past. We need to, it's got nothing to do with politics, it's just practicality. So we would like to welcome back more. So it's truly North America, but the Armitage brothers are just, heroes in terms of always being there for us. And, Urban, right? Former winner.
Been
right?
North
he's
American
done it.
Championship.
So, and he played Demons. And to his credit, as a longtime competitive player, there's no small amount of his success. He's a great player in the first place, but he's playing a list he's played multiple times before. He is not trying to learn how these models synergize or what to do with them in the different situations, scenarios present. It's just natural. Watching him play, he's moving these models around, and he can see what needs to happen next because he's had these same models in similar situations before. Rather than do what I do, which is play. Your player type is you play a list you just made an hour ago and wrote it in the back of a pop-tart box or whatever.
Chaos theory.
So, yeah. So his opponent, so if I remember correctly, Irvin's list, Zalakar, 2 Ventark, 2 Carbazol, a Mokruel, I know there's, and then I don't remember, 2 Borgats, the followers. There were Borgats there,
Slinking around.
Yeah, I think there's typically a Scrot too, because the Zalakar can, microgate one in, yeah. And then his opponent, Andrew Potter, at that point, an 8-time coin winner. He had trillions, but he's been known to play a different version of that. Now, this is the Victory on the Wing tournament pack. So you could designate a flying model as an ace, and the ace has certain effects in the scenario. It's kind of a themed tournament season, which ended with this tournament.
Right.
We're in a new situation now. And the final game, and we had 24 players, played 3 rounds, cut to 8 the first night, Saturday night, and then went semifinals, finals Sunday morning. And just great competition all around, and really easy as a tournament organizer. That Longshank software, one, makes it really easy, but what makes it really much easier than that is the quality of the players.
Sure.
We're not resolving arguments. Somebody's flipping a table. I can sit there and just BS with customers and fans and whatever, and not have to constantly leap to my feet to go resolve the situation.
Right.
Everybody was an adult.
We've always had a really good community
We're very lucky
with our tournament.
Yeah, very lucky. But Andrew, so one of the 2 Ventarks in Irvin's list was his ace, and Andrew had his leader was a Talsitar.
Interesting.
Right. There's 1 or 2 Drakahal in there, a Tree Speaker, a Searcher with the Durzakul artifact. Some defenders. I'm trying to remember what the other hero.
How did the Dracahals take to that?
Yeah, right. Demon Hunters hunting a demon sword. Yeah. Apparently, they came to some agreement well before the tournament started. So, I don't want to go into every single detail. I'll just give you the basics. So, in air superiority, and it's a scenario we're going to bring into the fold without the ace portion.
Okay.
I'll explain that in a minute because it's a great scenario. The table's divided into 4 quarters. The end of return, if you control more quarters than your opponent, you get 2 victory points. Control the same number, you get 1. Otherwise, you get 0. And so at the point where, but great play, there's a point at which they're about to start a new turn. Irvin is up 6-2, and both Ventarks are dead.
Ooh.
And that would include the ace.
Right.
So, and then a characteristic of the scenario is the ace, whatever quarter your ace is in, you lock that down no matter how many points are in there. And it's by points, not by models, by gold cost. So without that, and I'm watching this thing develop, and I'm looking at this, and it just seems to me, these 2 chess masters of chessing, and Andrew, Irvin's trying to kill. That's what demons do. Right. There's no sitting back and shooting or launching offensive spells, whatever. He's come in to beat things up. And Andrew, not, just the one shooter. A couple of defenders with javelins, but just to search him. It wasn't like it was this multi, Blade Rider, dismounted Blade Rider, searcher, myth dancer operation.
Which he's been known to take before.
Yes. Which has gotten the name Dirty Trillions. Not implying that Andrew's dirty, but you can draw your own conclusions. So at this point, Irvin's up 6-2, and what happens is essentially they get into a fight between the Zalakar and the Tal Sitar leader, and that quarter's locked down. And it goes from 6-2 Irvin to 6-4 Irvin to 6-6 Irvin to 6-8 Andrew to 6-10 and win. Game's to 10 points. So I can't say I'm inside Andrew's head and wouldn't want to be. Right. This dark, scary cobwebby place it might be. But it certainly seemed to me like there was a risk-taking operation at the beginning to get both Ventarks dead, and then recognizing what he could do as long as the Tal Sitar lived. And that wasn't a foregone conclusion. Sure. Because he's getting beat by the big blades of the Zalakar. However, think about it. Tal Sitar, D10 Mar. Tal Sitar leader, D12 Mar, +1, for dexterity, right? D12 +1, +2 to parry because of Swift. Right. And so not, especially taking the Bone Crusher crit away, even if he comes in over the top of the high-numbered hit, it's got a very reliable shot at either blocking the attack of Carly, which he did, or cutting the crit, and at one point he started to get to where the tree speaker couldn't heal him fast enough, and Irvin rolled a 1 for damage. So you have those moments, those moments. So essentially, what happens is we have 2 of the best players that have ever played the game playing each other. Yeah. It could have gone either way. It wasn't like it was some foregone conclusion. Right. There were moments in there where Irvin could have killed enough in that quarter, backed out of it, kept the Tal Sitar busy, backed out of it, and grabbed the other 3. But it was just investing enough, and Andrew's stuff not dying fast enough that it didn't work out that way. Right. But a great game. And easy to, did I answer a rules question in a game? I don't believe I did. Did I adjudicate a cover thing or a concealment thing or whatever, line of sight thing? No. Not that I remember. If I did, it was once. Right. So just fantastic to watch. One of the best games of Free Bloods I've ever watched. That's awesome. So very, very exciting. And a new national champion, 9-time coin holders. We're starting a new program. We're going to cut a new kind of coin. I was going to say 9 matters in Phelan. It does. Yeah. So we're making a Gall coin, right? And we're going to give that to the players who achieve, collect 9 coins, and change the rules for them a little bit. That's awesome. Yeah. But also recognize their significant achievement. That is a significant achievement. So great game to watch. Awesome. All right. Well, today what we're going to do for our main segment is review Adepticon. And because I wasn't there, I'm going to be asking the questions. Yeah. John's going to be relaying some things. Producer Jager might be chiming in a bit too, because he was there and he got to experience all the great. So what we should have Jager do is, you're going to be asking me because you weren't there. I tell a story. If Jager thinks I'm making it up, he can give a thumbs down. We'll go to him. He gives a thumbs up. Okay, he experienced it the same way. Then we can, absolutely. We'll have a fact checker.
Yeah.
That's what we do in 2025, right? I mean, okay.
Hopefully it's better than the
So,
normal ones.
yeah.
All right. So first things first. We're in a new place. We
We are
have
in
left
Milwaukee.
Chicago. We've
Yeah.
got Milwaukee. We've gone to the Barrett Center. Tell me about that place.
Okay, so interestingly, I have been to the Beard Center once before, pre-renovations. I went to Gen Con 2000, right?
Wow.
Yeah, but of course, the Gen Con is Lake Geneva. That's where TSR originates. Blah blah blah. History, old man. Although I am
Off of my lawn.
identifying as Gen X. Okay, we're talking about that in some other
Fact
episode.
check.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you very much. I'm actually right across the line, but if you list all the things that are in Gen X, it's me. I'm a latchkey kid, all that stuff, blah blah. So anyway, so I've been to the Barrett Center before, but not as a vendor. We went and did gamer stuff, right? So the very first impression is from being a vendor. The loading dock is on the roof, right?
That's interesting.
So we're bringing the truck. We take a 16-foot cargo truck with a hydraulic lift gate in the back to these conventions with our stuff in it, all the demo things, all the cabinets with models, the booth material. And so we're rolling in. We got a convoy of crew, DGS members and volunteers, super team. Can't even begin to talk about how incredible this team of people is. We'll get to that as we go along, but just want to say it here. But in this particular trip, Julie and I are in the truck. We're rolling in. We've got to go to the loading dock. We have a loading dock time, loading dock number. And we drive to where the spot says loading dock, and it's looks like a parking garage down ramp. Like where you're leaving the street and you're going into an underground parking garage.
Right.
Okay, fine. Not so many feet into that is a gate. Somebody has to check us and lift the gate. Electronic gate lifts, and it's a ramp up, a spiral ramp, 3 floors high, to take us to the roof.
That's
because
nice.
the exhibition hall's on the 3rd floor, right? So we're backing up to the back end of the exhibition hall, but we are looking over downtown Milwaukee, from our loading dock, which is unusual.
Yeah,
maybe it's more common, but in my experience, I back up to a lot of loading docks. They're all at ground level,
Right.
So,
as the CEO.
as the commercial equipment operator, yes. So we, and then one of the tricks was the Barrett Center is fine. It's a great place. In fact, the setup of the exhibition hall would seem to you a lot like Adepticon.
Right.
You're in the middle with the sliding doors that open in the morning and close at night between 2 big game areas, Warhammer on one side, and I think the other games, but the other big ones,
like Star
Legion,
Wars and
stuff like that. Yeah. And then games not quite as many players are on the 1st floor, the main hall, Grand Ballroom, which is where the free blood stuff was. So one challenge for us, just a challenge for us to, figure out in terms of logistics is the stuff that needs to go to the game tables, especially that great terrain that Chris Smith and Jacob and the other crew members put together for these encounters games, has to go to the 1st floor, right? Even though if it's in the truck. So we had to kind of work through that a little bit. Man, we have a plan for we already have a plan for next year because we already sat down and talked about it.
Sweet.
So the Barrett Center is great. Not a lot of. There's plenty of food options in Milwaukee to run to outside the hall. The hall has some concessions, but kind of pricey.
Right.
Okay. I didn't mind the pizza. Actually, a slice of pizza wasn't the worst job. I got a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up for the fact checkers. I'm only a couple minutes in. There were other options that weren't great, and there were other options that were staggeringly expensive for what you got. So you had to kind of, learn your way around what was a good deal, what wasn't a good deal, or head off. Give people a break and head off to somewhere else. So yeah, Barrett Center. I believe everybody was in it, although I did not visit this. I did not get a chance. I was extremely busy. I understand the historical section was on the 3rd floor also, but around the corner from the exhibit hall and not easy to find.
Okay.
And because Matt was talking to Mike Chinias from Firelock.
Right.
Weren't really happy with their situation. Our situation was great.
Interesting.
Grand Ballroom was a great place to play, big carpeted ballroom. The exhibit hall, well lit. We had plenty of space to maneuver.
Yeah.
So the Barrett Center was fine.
Good. So we had We had a brand new release, brand new faction, 8 models, Warp Crawl. Finally, huge thing for us.
Shout out to Trevor for being patient.
Yeah, right.
Chris Jackson.
Yeah, gosh, right. These guys, for so long. Us for so long.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. How are they received?
Well, I will tell you this. The short version is we were in danger of selling out of some of the models that Mark Allen released day one.
Wow.
Yeah, because it turns out that the best convention we'd ever have for sales prior to was Adepticon last year, Gen Con, until we start selling board games, which we will soon.
Yeah.
And other games like that, it's not going to be as big a deal because
Right.
Adepticon's a miniatures convention for, and to a large degree for science fiction and fantasy miniature players, people that paint their models,
Right.
things like that. This blew that out of the water.
Yeah.
So we were, the Hunting Cat was the first to sell. The Hunting Cat was the first to sell out.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Great looking model, used for a lot of things, but also great in the game.
Yeah.
People were checking out the rules and, saying, oh, I want to have a couple of these. So, yeah, very well received. And we already have to do another run, production
Right.
after that.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So, and also, sorry.
No, you're
but
fine.
Also, Jeff had his set there and played as a ringer in the tournament and also offered some games during the week so people could see how they played.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, he called me one morning for something, and he had mentioned that he had them, and I was like, "Oh my gosh,
Sit him on the table.
Fantastic!" Yeah,
we should probably do that more officially. I knew that he had them, so I didn't sweat it, but I think we ought to
Well, no,
if one of us doesn't paint them in time, they get painted in time, so we have a set.
Right.
So
no, that's definitely something we need to talk about. So we had a lot of people by the booth. We had a lot of games going on down on that first floor. How did those games go?
Well, those games are the talk of the town. And we're talking about the participation games, the event games. We had tables there for full game demos that we could send people to.
Right.
But we also had in every game slot 2 participation games. Shifting Sands at a Kendoran necropolis.
Yeah.
Special delivery with giant dinosaurs moving cargo through the Empire. Final Days of the Legion, which had 3 different scenes you played through. The first one has all those, biremes on the table, right? And they're trying to leave the port, or fireballs flying, and people, running from the docks onto the ships. It was amazing. And then Halls of the Shock and Awe. Yeah. So the games, and we've talked about it before. You're at a convention, you're walking down the aisle. You cannot see a 32 millimeter model.
That's right.
What you're going to see is the terrain.
Exactly.
And the volunteers put these tables together, Chris and Jacob especially, just knocked it out of the park. People who had no particular association with Free Blades, maybe weren't even fantasy gamers of any kind, were coming over, taking pictures, talking about the tables, talking to the guys who made them.
Yeah.
How'd you do this? We used a lot of rust red paint. What color is that? Because it's probably out of stock. So, and how were the ships put together? Where'd you get the dinosaur fight? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then of course they'd stop, and then they stop. Oh, what game are you playing on here?
That's right.
Like, those models are cool. So that's how that works. Now they were always full, and you'd hear that. We were sitting one day. I'll tell you one story. We were sitting one day. And one of the guys who was off there, I think it was Roger. No, it was Chris. Chris and I were sitting there talking. And the Final Days of the Legion was going on. And Dan Rains was running in along with Roger, I think,
Yeah.
And Jacob, of course. And they were on this game, like 8 or 10 players around the table. And apparently there was one player who was just, every time he did something, shoot or fight, or take a test, he was just getting the number he needed. And it was like this last fight towards the end of the game. The narrative's running down. We're trying to stop this last ship from leaving, or leave on the last ship, whatever they were doing. And he, gets attacked with a pretty high number. goes to parry it and rolls like a 37.
Oh,
And the
gosh.
table goes nuts, you know. And Chris is like, and there was a moment,
Yep,
you know, right?
yep, that's
Everybody's
right.
cheering, you know. It took a little while to get there, you know. Sometimes it comes very early, turn 2, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes later. And they're all high fiving each other, and you know, Dan's been kind of messing with the guy because he was good natured.
Yeah.
You know, oh, just enough to do it again. You know? And the guy like super crits his parry and you know gets a riposte and kills the guy who's attacking him, and they win the game. You know,
Yeah.
they accomplish the mission, whatever. So just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, extremely well done in terms of the excitement level, the knowledge of the guys running, the volunteers who are helping us,
Yeah.
that whole crew, and of course the terrain is beautiful.
Yeah. I will say the something that I saw while I was on my trip, actually, there was a video that came out of the Baird Center, not out of Adepticon, but out of the Baird Center, that featured that flagship, the Trezorite flagship from Final Vision Legion. Yeah. And one of our volunteers, Chef McElwee, behind it doing something, right?
Doing stuff.
Doing free blade stuff. But it was really cool because, you know, the video was a minute long and it showed a bunch of 40K and a bunch of other, and there's that shit.
There we are.
Right. And I was like, and that's why we do this. You
It's
know?
why. It's absolutely why.
So.
Very good.
All right. So we already talked about the final game of the tournament, but can you tell us a little bit about the rest of the tournament and how that went?
Smoothly. Super smoothly. We now use the Longshanks software.
Mm-hmm.
The Longshanks dude was there, had a booth.
Really?
Right.
Well, that's cool.
Because we discovered a bug nobody had ever discovered. Colin was able to walk right up to him, talk to him, get it handled. You know,
we would
communicating, right? Yeah. Well, it was not impactful. It was very, very minor. But when we went to fill the semifinals, you had 4 players to do the matchups. It was showing more matchups than 2 tables.
Okay.
And one person's name was just repeated several times, but it didn't stop us in any way.
Like we could figure it out, but it's something that needs to be fixed on the software.
That needs to go away. We'll make that go away. So we had people, some people had accounts already. We just made accounts for other folks. Now they have that number. They just walk up, give me a 5-digit number. They're in, tell me your faction, done.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps people off the same tables as best it can. And it does matchups, keeping people away from people in their own group. Now, interestingly, you input your state.
Right.
Okay. So we have, I might get it wrong, but I think Irvin, it shows the Canadian flag.
Sure.
And in Ontario. Right. But Kevin's got the virtual tag. So is that so they can be matched up? What are they doing there? Yeah. Did he not know what he was signing up for? He says, you could have these 2 guys match each other. I said, I wouldn't care. It's on them.
That's right.
But they were great. They were, of course, they're the same good-natured selves they always are.
Yeah.
Super to be around. So 3 rounds Saturday, and then we cut to 8. The 8 cut was just you press a button. Yeah, you got the top 8 names.
Yeah.
And we control the tiebreakers.
That's awesome.
But more importantly than the software, the players were. You know, Colin and I were there to adjudicate anything to be adjudicated, and we were Maytag repairmen.
Right.
Which some people listening will not understand the relevance of that. Is that Gen X or Boomer? I don't know. Right. But
it's Gen X.
Yeah, it's the good. That's what it should be. Now the commercial where the guy's bored because the appliance never breaks down. Right? So we're sitting there BSing with other players that are walking up. People are looking at the terrain. This great crew from Warpfire.
Yeah.
The store down in Florida. My God, those guys were amazing. Because they kept coming back with more questions. You know, they were looking for a game to get into, and we were able to talk to them about free blades. So, just as smooth. We might look at changing the day that we do it because we're making some people make some hard choices. We had the 32 seats available. We sat 24 players, and there are players there who were choosing either other things or not to play because we're cutting into vendor time.
Right.
So we are going to, first of all, we're going to get information. We got plenty of time before next year to go talk to folks.
Right.
You know, but we might be doing that a little differently.
Yeah.
And it's also because of where other people's tournaments are.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Well, there's just so much to do there.
Yeah, there is.
Right. There's so much.
There's a lot of crossover between us and Legion. You know,
that's very interesting.
They're not dissimilar, right? They're if you're in the competitive part,
Right.
I know a lot of players that play both, and Legion's a big deal there. X-Wings kind of died off, Armada's died off, Imperial Assault's definitely died off. Too bad. That's my favorite of the bunch. But Legion's pretty strong.
It is, and it's experiencing an uptick right now because of some new models and stuff. So,
And so we want to just, not cross over when we don't have to cross over something else big.
right.
And when people want to have their free time and when they want to go to the vendor hall.
Yeah.
So stay tuned and feel free to give us your
Your
take on that. Yeah.
Right.
If you're a person who goes to Adepticon, let us know what you think about what day you prefer to be on.
Yeah.
If you are a person who goes to tournaments.
Right.
If you're not going to play in it, yes. Not telling you to be quiet. So we're looking for the people who actually would make that choice.
Exactly.
What your random opinion is, about something you wouldn't do anyway. So
Well, that's a
super smooth.
That's
bottom
a
line.
good segue into the last question, which is, what are some things that we know are going to change for next year, given this is all brand new to us this year?
Well, the location.
Yeah, the location was it, and that
we did things pretty much in the way we've done them.
Standard.
Well, we've learned a lot. We keep those tables. We get ourselves in one place and keep a bunch of tables for, unticketed, demos. Somebody gets a demo from Julie at the booth, is excited about it, would like to see the game played full.
Right.
I'll give them a 15-minute rundown.
Sure.
We have people available there to take them through that. That was very popular. A lot of people moved through those. We've got notes on, some minor things, but I would tell you it went pretty darn well.
Yeah.
So, and there's logistic things with the Baird Center.
Right.
We're not going to, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. We're not going to have the same Airbnb we all stay in. The 1920s grocery store converted into an Airbnb.
It looked very characterful.
Yeah. Well, we put Matt Green in a meat locker, so
seems appropriate,
right? I mean, doesn't that feel good? I guess seems right to me. So, but we're only 10 minutes away, so that all worked.
That's really nice.
Just roll back in every morning, no problem. So yeah. Oh, there's one thing we are going to add, and I'll tease this now. It's probably first publicly. We've talked about some of the players in Adepticon, but not a wider audience. We don't have the details yet, so please don't ask. You can ask, but don't ask and expect us to have an answer right away.
Right.
Okay. Jeff and Colin and I are going to establish a program called the Gauntlet, where at game days and game stores and conventions like Adepticon, we'll have a way where you can sign up to play us in a competitive game of Free Blades, and if you win, you get a prize. And if you beat all three of us, you get a big prize. Because unfortunately, don't take offense, it's all about you. We just want to be able to play.
Right.
I'm watching all these amazing games of Free Blades, these beautifully painted factions. These people are lifelong friends of ours in a lot of cases playing these games. And I just get to, So any excuse to play. One of these nights, we did not get challenged by the Armitage brothers this year, so we had an open slot that we could have used. So evenings or around some of the games, we're going to get a little, challenge the team, and we'll give you a cool thing if you win.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to have one table that is the Gauntlet and schedule games there.
Yeah. So am I guilty of deliberately saying this the way I did to put your terrain mind onto building us a table?
Probably.
Yeah. I'll just take it as a win.
Okay. Well, just so if we're talking about things that haven't been made publicly, but we've been bandying about, I'm just about to undertake a serious, complete reformatting of all of our terrain as well.
Oh, to theme it narratively. Yeah, that's a great project.
So I don't think that we'll have any trouble finding a badass table to put the Gauntlet on and make
maybe a little extra challenges.
Yeah, make it a stable part of the Adepticon lineup.
Okay.
So
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Developing news.
That's right. Yeah.
Fact checkers.
Yeah. That one we did not plan. So I like that. I like that idea. Love a specific table.
All right. So last section today. Producer Jager has a question about the Gauntlet. So yeah, jump on in there, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably going to be me, because I know people are going to ask about this, and I'm also already thinking about this. How frequently can somebody challenge you guys?
We don't know the answer. Didn't I just say we hadn't come up with the actual plan yet? And we don't want to. And the thing is that just because you could just keep taking a crack at me every Tuesday night, we have to be sensitive that we don't want to make it unfair, right? So we've got to think about. You can throw your gauntlet down right now. Right? This thing's we're about to be done. We're going to walk in the next room. I've got a 275 sitting there, so put your money where your mouth is. But one of the interesting things we're not going to talk about tonight, maybe we'll talk about it later, is Jeff and Colin and I got in a conversation. Right now, gun to your head, you have to play a gauntlet game. What faction?
Oh, nice.
Interesting answers.
I bet there was.
Yep.
All right, we're running out of time in this room, so we have one thing left to do, and that is our job board. And for our job board this week, our player in New England, one of our players in New England, Tim, has asked a question about the new tournament pack, which is out. When you're hearing this, it's been out
since the Sunday of Adepticon.
Yeah. New version went online today, and I splashed that this morning.
Right. Uh-huh.
So why 275 gold for the tournament pack?
Well, we had gone up to 275 in the prior years. After 251 and up, you get another hero slot.
Right.
So it's a 7th hero for those people who want to do that. And it was popular. Mm-hmm. And when we decided to look at, the bottom line is we're going to survey the group each year and get some druthers about the theming and why we would want to choose what we chose.
Right.
The scenarios of this tournament pack are prototypes for the new style of scenario we're going to put in the Free Blade Streamline project, the 2.0.
Right.
2.0.
2.0.
So it just, we were confident that we used them in a tournament here in Kansas City in the winter.
Right.
We're confident that they're working. We want to just get some more experience with them and showcase them. So it's a new style. They've done there's the same scenarios you know and love. The victory points are kind of different.
Right.
But the point level, we had done 250, so let's go back to 275 because people liked it.
Yeah.
It's not complicated.
Right.
We didn't come up with some.
There's no hidden meanings or anything.
I don't think we've done 200 and 175 in the past. We've done a follower tournament where you get a leader caster, and that's all you can take. Everything has to be a follower. Yeah. I don't know if there would be any support to going to 300 or more. It's really about what the players want.
It is, yeah.
But I would suggest that it was very popular at 275.
Very.
Probably more tournaments at 275 than on the other point level. And we will be at some point later this year, we'll be taking a look at what people like for next year. So play some events, play some 275 games. Say you like it, say I want to try some more, I want to try some less, or I want a theme. It's this theme as opposed to what you're doing now, or the Richard in the Wing, which is themed to air because the Azura were coming out.
Right.
You let us know. But really, there's not a mathematical formulaic answer. Right. We hadn't done it for a year, and it was popular. I'd say,
it's
not complicated.
It's an easy answer.
But we're absolutely looking for people's opinions for when we go to do it. It runs from the Sunday of Adepticon to the Sunday of Adepticon. So as the tournament closes out, that's the last games that are played officially. This is for tournaments we run, and people want to run tournaments like the ones we run.
Right.
But in your home group, run events.
Do whatever you want.
Yes. Don't feel limited to what we're doing. If your crew doesn't like 275, do what you like.
This is your game.
Yeah, it's your game. It's a toolkit. But you'll know that, Gen Con, ReaperCon, the ones we run, Adepticon, the ones we run here in KC, some of our questers are going to follow that lead also. But really, it's up to you what to do.
Awesome. Well, leave that feedback for us on the Sleeping Grush channel, and any other feedback you might have for the Sleeping Grush podcast there on the channel, including other questions for our job board segment. Great place to leave questions. Also, just a great place to comment and let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what you hate, what you love, that sort of thing. So we would love to hear from you on the Sleeping Brush
Absolutely.
channel on the Discord, and really blown up after Adepticon. So
Yep.
a lot of new players on there. So folks, jump in, right? Well, that's why we have Discord, is for conversation. Jump in there. So thank you, John, for that review. It was,
I know.
just as much
I know.
for
It was happening to
me
me
as it
last
was,
year. I
you
know how it feels, dude. I get it. Trust me.
So, folks, we really appreciate you being here and listening to us. If whatever you're listening on, make sure you give us a thumbs up or a like or whatever it is that your podcast station is offering to let us know that we're doing things well. So, until next time, we'll see you around the table.
Sil Sakava.